What's up, you guys? Sean Sapp, Fightful.com, here in my home office, but occasionally I step out. Occasionally I go do stuff. And this is a different kind of story about an interview I did out on the road. Now, some of you who follow Fightful and my social media may remember earlier this year when I tweeted a website design by a little girl in Kentucky named Whitney, who spoke about how important Becky Lynch was to her, how much that Becky Lynch motivated her. Well, that was sent to me by a friend from my hometown who became a teacher and noticed it and sent it my way and said, hey, I just thought this was kind of cool. I know you cover wrestling. Well, I tweeted out a picture of that design, and Becky Lynch actually got back to the girl. The girl had admittedly been bullied a lot for loving pro wrestling. Really, anybody who grew up a pro wrestling fan, you can relate to that. You know what that's like. Becky Lynch was as deep into character on social media as she could possibly be. Her header even said, "Nothing but work gets done here," because of all the people who got hurt feelings about her social media. However, I posted that design, and Becky Lynch actually wrote back, sent a message to the girl, said that it warmed her heart and that she'll see the girl in the ring. I was also sent this reaction video of Whitney finding out that Becky sent her this message.
Mr. Staggs, is that your computer science teacher? Mm-hmm. He called and said that a friend of his who used to work for WWE or knows people in WWE seen your website, and he screenshot it and put it on Twitter and tagged Becky in it, and she retweeted him back and said, "Warms my heart too." And now there's been over 400 retweets of your website on Twitter.
What do you think?
I don't know what to think.
Now, in the hours, days that followed, Whitney's brother, Christian, reached out to me and struck up a friendship with me. And I said, you know what? I'm pretty sure if she ever wants to get into a wrestling school or if she ever wants to try out grappling, I bet I know some people in that area and I could kind of help get those wheels in motion. And then Christian says to me, well, my dad is Chris Michaels, a pro wrestler from this area. And I was like, wait, I know who Chris Michaels is. He's wrestled in WCW, he's been in WWF, TNA, he's done a lot of stuff. He recently even wrestled for Impact on a Twitch show. And since this has all happened, he's actually appeared at the WWE Performance Center as a guest coach. So needless to say, little Whitney's got her foot in the door already if she wants it. But I was like, you know what? I want to interview Chris Michaels. I want people to hear the Chris Michaels story. And it's far from the entire story. This is a very interesting man. He's seen a lot of everything. He's wrestled a lot of different styles, a lot of different places, and for a lot of different people. And he didn't disappoint. However, my audio skills did disappoint a little bit. My recorder didn't work the first few minutes of this, so you're going to get camera audio. Don't worry, it kicks on midway through the interview. Another cool part about this story, a few weeks after I interviewed Chris Michaels, his daughter Whitney finally got to meet Becky Lynch, who had inspired her. And based on... What's up, you guys? Sean Sapp, Fightful.com, here with the man, Chris Michaels. Chris, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Now, I mean, people know your name. You've been a little bit everywhere. You've been wrestling a long time. You've got experience in WWE and TNA. You've done Performance Center guest spots. You're all over the place. What motivates you to get in the ring, and what is it the same thing that motivated you to first get in the ring?
Well, you know, I started professional wrestling when I was 16 years old, and now I'm 46. It's been 30 years. I never dreamed I would still be performing today, especially at the level that I think that I still perform at. I thought by now I would already have the mansion on the hill and white picket fence and all that and be retired by now, but to be honest and to tell you the truth, if I physically couldn't perform today, I would be pretty sad and upset because I still have the same passion that I do since day one. I love hearing my music. I love walking through that curtain, and I love performing in front of all the fans still to this day. And as of right this second, I don't see an end in sight. So
Awesome.
We'll just carry on and see what the future holds.
Now, your day one was well before the landscape we know now. No internet, a lot of that content isn't easily accessible. Sometimes you got to send tapes to people. Sometimes you got to rely on word of mouth. How have you seen the landscape change to benefit you, or maybe even detract from what you're trying to do?
Well, I will say this: what's been different is as far as social media goes. You get clips and you see people putting their shows or clips of matches and all there. It's really easy to get your name out there, which a lot of guys are getting booked and signed just based on what's said about them or seen about them on the internet. Back in the day, you did have to send tapes in to certain people or videos and with like a little resume and say, hey, here's me, here's some of my matches. That's how a lot of guys got signed back then. But now, and another thing is, it's just getting out there and traveling and going to different shows. A lot of the young guys that want to get noticed and get experience and exposure, which is knocking a lot of guys like me out of work.
Sure.
They're going on their own free dime. They're working these shows, they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
But they're doing it for the exposure, and I don't blame them one bit. If you have the money to cover your own travel and hotel and flight and all that, to go to a certain show to be seen by a certain promoter, I say go for it. But that's how you get seen now, is to get out there and travel the roads. Which me, I get a booking, I'm like, how much can you pay me?
Sure.
So,
Time is money
sad for me,
you.
but good for them.
Yeah.
Good for the young guys today. They can use social media and all that as an outlet for exposure and get seen today.
I know in the early 90s, there was another man by the name of Chris Michaels who did some TV spots. Did you ever run into any market confusion there, so to speak?
Well, yeah, I'd heard about this guy. I've never met him, didn't know him, but somebody, I think it might be Wikipedia or something, has mine and his stats all mixed up.
Oh, yeah, if you go to the cage match database or whatever.
Yeah.
It would act like one guy has worked nonstop throughout all of it.
Yeah. Well, with him is all these matches in New York and New Jersey.
Yes,
and
the Northeast.
And then it said I was from somewhere else, but then it would say my stuff from Nashville, and
it'd have you wrestling in Long Island and Nashville the same day.
Yeah. I don't know that guy, never seen none of his stuff, and I personally didn't know there's another guy named Chris Michaels until somebody hit me up and said, hey, when did you wrestle in Long Island?
Yeah.
I hadn't lately.
So it was fairly recently, right? Or was it
the past few years ago?
Oh, wow.
Not horribly long ago.
Sure. But well after the advent of the internet, I guess. So you hadn't heard about this in the 90s as it was happening?
No.
Okay. So I mentioned you appeared a little bit everywhere. You appeared in OVW. I had seen an interview that you did where you talked about how you kind of favored a guy like Shelton Benjamin over the Brock Lesnar's, Batista's, Randy Orton's, and John Cena's. Is there a particular reason for that? Because I know you did plenty of work with him.
Yeah, well, I had a partner named Sean Casey.
Yeah.
I wrestled with him in the early 90s and some Kentucky stuff up this way. We used to wrestle in Georgetown, Kentucky every Sunday. And that's where I met Sean, and we did a lot of tag stuff and worked with each other there. Well, this was right when OVW started, the end of 99 into 2000, and Sean hit me up and he's like, hey, you need to give Jimmy Cornette a call. He's like, he's got this OVW, this TV and developmental. And so, which I'd worked for Jim Cornette in Smoky Mountain days.
Sure.
He gave me a slight push. I got to work with Robert Gibson. Ricky Morton was out of the picture. I got to be one half of the Rock and Roll Express one night against the Heavenly Bodies for the Smoky Mountain Tag titles. That was an awesome experience. But anyway, Cornette known me for forever, and so I hit Jimmy up and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in coming to OVW. Well, my first night in, my first TV match in, I worked with Sean Casey, and he put me over for the LVW light heavyweight title. And so I had a long-going angle with Sean Casey, and then he decided to turn me heel and team us up. And he's like, I need you guys to work with these guys because they're the ones that WWE's looking at the most and wants to bring up, and I need guys like you to help get them there. Therefore, they will be looking at you too. Mm-hmm. And that was Shelton Benjamin, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Batista.
Yeah, so you worked those guys a lot.
Yeah, and where they were really green.
Sure.
You know, and didn't know nothing. And it was like pulling teeth some nights.
Yeah.
Because, don't get me wrong, they're great athletes, but they don't know the concept of professional wrestling.
Yeah, especially at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Which we had a lot of trouble out of Brock.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get it. Anyway, just Shelton was real acceptable of critique, and you know, during a match I'd say, "Ooh, I know you like to do this move, but how about you do it here?" Mm-hmm. He'd be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's really good." And of course, Randy, you know, I got to work with his dad before.
Yeah.
And had a great match with him. Oh my God, this guy's amazing. You know, Bob Orton Jr. And, you know, I used to tell him all the time, I got to work with your dad. And I guess he took a liking to me then. But of course, Randy grew up around the business, and he was real respectful and was acceptable to any ideas me and Sean had. But the other guys, you know, they you know, they're already getting a huge six-figure salary right off the bat, ain't even done anything. And of course, I'm here, I'm like, I'm getting my little chump change coming up here and helping you.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, least you could do is shut up and accept it, you know. I'm trying to help you to help myself, but you're getting paid and I'm not. You know, I'm like, come on, dude. You know, have a better attitude.
So I assume you're on the per appearance at that point. Per appearance deal? Yeah.
Yeah. There'd be some weeks Jim would say, hey, take off this Wednesday, come back the next.
Yeah.
You know, which those guys, they're there regardless, they're getting paid regardless.
So that environment had to be like a lot different than Smoky Mountain, because I know Smoky Mountain always did kind of have those ties to WWF as well, but I mean, OVW was the developmental territory, like pretty established.
Right. And, you know, me and Sean Casey still have, we've had conversations about it. We're like, what went wrong? Why didn't we get signed? Blah, blah, blah. But our only conclusion is that we were like right there, that close. But then the buyout with WCW.
Sure.
And they sent all those guys they wouldn't do anything with to OVW. And it pushed us non-contract guys out the back door. And we're like, Jimmy, you know, how come you know, I hadn't worked in 3 Wednesdays, you know, what's going on? He's like, I have all these WCW guys, I don't know what to do with them. And he said, I personally don't want to bring you and Sean up and have you work with these big jacked up green guys and getting yourself hurt. So I know you got to make a living, you got to continue working. He's like, my hands are tied. And that's how me and Sean felt like, you know, we were right there, but then that buyout kind of pushed us out and caused us to be left off the landmark.
Yeah. I know you got a lot of looks because you worked several different styles of people on WWE programming. I know S.A. Rios a couple times, I think D'Lo Brown maybe. Yeah. So you got a few looks, and it was, like I said, categorically different styles. Obviously, working S.A. Rios and working D'Lo Brown's a little bit different.
Well, that was my first experience working with a guy who didn't really speak that fluent of English.
Yeah.
But, well, it got to be, it was the jacked and metal show.
Yeah.
One show in the morning, one show late at night, but it was the same show.
Yes.
Well, it got to be, I always made the joke, I'm like, I'm in an angle. They say Rios, but the finish is the same.
Yeah.
Because Tony Gurria was in charge of that. And every time I'd show up as an extra, and Tony would be like, oh, yeah, Chris, you work well with S.A., right? Yeah, you got S.A. tonight. And I always had those matches with him. And I'm like, I got an angle with S.A., you know.
Yeah. He was real young at that point, too. Like, I think he was, 20, 21. He was a real young dude.
Oh, he was super nice, and he he wanted to let me get some shine in there. You know, he didn't want to just eat me up. He wanted to have a competitive match and all. I thought we made it work. You know,
Yeah.
I did my job. I made him look like $1 million and put him over. But he let me get a lot of stuff in. If you go back and see those matches.
What kind of input did you get or feedback did you get from any of those matches that you thought stood out? Like, when you get through the curtain, do you have, like, I don't know, a Bruce Pritchard or anybody coming up and saying anything to you, or a Jim Ross?
Well, like the very first big show at the Louisville Gardens, that OVW, it was OVW/WWF show, where they had WWF guys work with OVW guys. Like, I think it was like a special appearance from Stone Cold that night, and Kane, and then like they had Nick Dinsmore. He worked with Chris Benoit, and Flash Flanagan worked with Chris Jericho, and all that. So, well, I remember that one show we opened up. It was a battle royal for the, I don't know, number one contendership, or whoever won was the OVW light heavyweight champion. But Cornette fixed it to where it was left down to me and Sean Casey. So then we lasted through the battle royal, and then we kind of made it a singles match.
Yeah.
And then whatever the finish, I don't remember what it was, but I remember coming through the curtain afterwards, and like Bruce Pritchard was sitting there, and he's like, "Hey, Chris, good stuff." And I'm thinking, "Oh, thanks." And I'm like, "I didn't even know you knew my name or knew who I was." But after one of the matches I had with S.A. Rios, I remember Kevin Kelly's like, "Hey, Chris, really good stuff with S.A. You've gotten a lot bigger and stuff. Keep it up, keep it up." And I would always get told I did good, did great, and encouraged and all that. But, you know, just nobody never said, "Hey, sign this." You know.
Yeah. I know you were around for some of the early TNA shows as well, and you worked with some guys that were fairly local to here, like the Naturals and guys like that. What was that experience like? Who hit you up and said, "Hey, got NWA TNA here"?
That's a funny story. I had a couple tryout matches for TNA, which I thought off the bat, with the connections I had, that I'd automatically be asked to join the company.
Seemed like a good fit.
Yeah. Well, there was one night I was supposed to wrestle a guy named Rick Michaels, who was a protege of Bill Behrens, who was in the office of TNA.
Yeah, he did some WWE matches as well.
Yeah, and then I think he ended up being a seamstress for him or something.
Oh, okay.
Well, Rick came to me that night, and he's like, "Hey," he said, "I know we're supposed to have a singles." He said, "I really don't want to do that." He said, "Would you mind tagging with me?" I'm like, "Man, I just want to get a job. I want to be seen, you know, whatever it takes." He said, "Hang on, I'll be right back." So he went and talked to Bill. Bill fixed it where he and I tagged, and we had a match with, they were called the Kingpins, two trainees of Kurt Hennig.
Oh, okay.
And we had a really good match with them. They did the old spot where we were sit down, crotch down in the buckles, and they took their bowling balls and did the thing.
Yeah.
Huge pop and all that. Well, after that, they asked me and Rick to come back next week for pay-per-view, because it was pay-per-view every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
In Nashville. Well, then we had a match against one of the Harris twins and Sonny Siaki.
Yeah.
And it was whoever won that match got a number one contenders match for the NWA World Tag Team titles. They slipped us over in that.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, shit, here we go."
Things are looking good.
Yeah. Well, we had the match with James Storm and Chris Harris, which that was a big headache going over throughout the day, because Chris and James were battling over who got what in the match.
Among each other, you mean?
Yeah. And I remember one of the times Storm got out of the ring and left. And I'm like, "What's his problem?" And Chris said, I said, would you inform this guy that he's here next week, he's getting guaranteed money, and I'm here week to week, and that for him to be grateful for what he's got and the push he's getting. I said, because this guy used to buy a ticket and watch me in the front row of the Nashville Fairgrounds right here. I'm like, "Did you tell him to straighten it up?" You know. Anyway, and I was told that night we had the best match on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And then we come back the next week. It's a 6-way with Storm and Harris, us, me and Rick, and Chase and Cassidy, the Naturals.
Naturals, yeah. Chase
no,
Stevens.
not the Naturals. They were called the Hot Shots.
Oh, the Hot Shots. You're right. Yeah. Was that Cassidy Riley and Chase Stevens?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. And then they did a blow off or whatever, and that's when they brought in Brian Lee and Wolfie D.
Yeah,
as,
the Disciples of the New
Disciples,
Church.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking we're going to do a big 4-way tag thing here or whatever. Then I'm told that Rick Michaels has hurt himself permanently and won't be able to wrestle anymore.
Oh, man.
I'm like, okay, so what do we do now? Like, we'll let you know. Weeks go by. I call up Bob Ryder, and I said, hey, what's going on? I'm like, I'm sorry Rick's hurt or out. I'm like, but I'm still here, still available. I'm like, you can give me a different tag partner, or I can do whatever.
Seems you would have fit in with almost any combination of those guys. Like, would have been a good mold right there.
Right. And he goes, well, then they had, they had a Saturday morning show called Explosion, I think.
Still do, yeah.
I had a couple matches on. He said, well, let's see how you do singles. And he brought me on the Explosion. I had a match against Abyss, and then which I helped train that guy.
Yeah.
Up here in Georgetown. He's like, I'm sorry, Chris. They told me I can't bump. I'm like, dude, it's cool.
Yeah.
But we did what we could do. And then I worked a couple other guys and told I did great match, whatever. Not another word.
So I haven't heard back from them ever since?
Nope.
How is your relationship with, obviously working this area, you got like Sammy Callahan, the Chris brothers, stuff like that are going to be popping up. Do you ever hear about, hear from anybody of influence in that company or from that company, hey, we might take a look, might bring you in, something like that? Because they do a lot of collaborative shows, too, in the Midwest.
You talking about Impact?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just did one with the Maddox brothers in UCW, the Sports Center in Owensboro, Kentucky. I was main event with Johnny Morrison,
John
or whatever he calls himself now.
Yeah, whatever he calls himself.
Yeah,
that
Johnny
given
Nitro,
night. Johnny
Morrison.
UCW that night, probably.
I felt we had a good match, and Johnny was really good and really respectful. And
he's a nice dude.
Yeah, he really
Very nice
is.
Dude.
I pictured him being more of a jerk.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I was very happy with the match, but nobody said a word to me about nothing since.
So, when you got the word that you would be headlining that show and it'd have the Impact type of stamp on it, were you surprised? Not surprised you'd be in the main event, but surprised that it had the Impact stamp on it, so to speak.
Well, I'm good buddies with the Maddox brothers, so if they're up to something, they kind of give me a leak before they do anybody else or put it out there. Because sometimes they ask my opinion. They're like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Like, shh, don't tell nobody. But this is what we're thinking about doing, and I'll be like, I don't know if you should do that or not. Or I'll be like, oh yeah, that's great. Do it. And he sent me the picture of the Impact thing, and I'm like, well, I don't know how y'all doing that business-wise as far as numbers go, the gate, and all that, but if you're doing it, get your name out there. I'm like, yeah, go for it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I was really surprised that they put me in the main event against Johnny. I actually felt, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Part of me's like, it's about damn time.
Yeah, sure.
But then I was like, that's really cool that y'all thought that I would help on that level,
So no word on what Impact thought of that, or if they had said anything? Because I know that sometimes, say I'm talking to Larry D, and he says that a lot of the Twitch streams that he's been at, that he's worked on, like Callis or D'Amore or Josh Matthews will be there and will say something. Did you get any of that type of feedback at all?
No. I saw Scott D'Amore that night.
So they were there.
Hi, hello. I know Chase Stevens was talking to him quite a bit.
Sure.
He probably knows him a lot better than I do.
Yeah, he worked there for quite a while.
Right. But nobody from the TNA office said anything to me as far as, hey, it was a good match you had with Johnny, which I talked with Johnny. Johnny was very happy with it, he said and claimed. Yeah. And real respectful and all that. We took a picture together, and hey, it was great. Hope to do it again soon. Hope to see you down the road. Blah blah blah.
So right before our interview, you held a seminar. How can I frame this? How long have you been doing seminars, teaching? How far in did you do that, and when did you realize that you had a knack for it? Because sometimes best wrestlers in the world can't teach worth a lick, but
right.
Everything I've heard of you is that you've got a real knack for it, and people seem to enjoy learning from you.
Well, that's funny. I do have a few people that I've personally trained myself that I'm really proud of. A guy by the name of Real Deal Derek Neal.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of saying, yes, I trained that guy. And then, a lot of people think that I say this or whatever. I didn't train John Cena and Randy Orton.
Yeah.
I helped polish them up. My deal with those guys was I would have TV matches with them, and then I'd help them lay out their stuff. And then after the match, I would tell them, hey, you could have done this there, should have done that there, blah, blah, blah. Cornette allowed us that freedom.
Yeah.
And then we would have him in on the critique after, and he would either agree or disagree.
Yeah.
That was what I did with those guys. But he had Sean and I work with those guys on a more recent basis than anybody because he felt that we were the best to help them get to where they needed to be.
Yeah. The experience factor.
Right. As far as the seminar stuff goes, I never dreamed that I would have – I've always been a shy, naive guy. Never really spoke my opinion. But I think, I finally blossomed and came out of my shell, and I'm better at, I can go out there in front of thousands of people and grab the mic as a heel, especially if I'm in my character, and I can talk all night long.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, hey, you need to give a speech in front of these 10 people, I'm a nervous wreck.
I feel you.
But on another way to look at it, I remember WWE hired Bobby Eaton, beautiful Bobby Eaton, to be a trainer or whatever. But then they're like, Bobby is so good and so natural at what he does, he can't teach it. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't know, I just did it.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that move? I don't know, I just did it.
Second nature to him.
Yeah. It's hard for you. Some people, they're just so good at it, they can't teach it. It's just hard for them. And, now with social media and all that, I see there's so many people or veterans or whatever putting their input, and you see posts, hey wrestlers, if you want to do this, you need to do this, and this, and I'm only thinking what if social media was back when Ric Flair and Steamboat were going at it, and you had all these critiques and all that.
Nobody needs to go 60 minutes.
Yeah, or why does Ric Flair talk in a suit? He needs to wear a T-shirt and tennis shoes.
Got to sell his merch.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Yes, I'm labeled a veteran or whatever, but if somebody wants my opinion, I'll give it to them.
Yeah.
But I'm not going out because to me, yes, there's a lot of things in pro wrestling that's black and white. Yes, you should do this. No, you shouldn't do that. But I feel there's a lot of gray areas. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading some of this advice and stuff. I'm like, all you're doing is just steering people wrong. And I'm like, if somebody wants to know my opinion on it, I'm no expert, but I have been around a while. And if you want to know what I know or what I think is right, then ask me and I'll tell you.
So you made a trip down to Orlando to the Performance Center recently, yeah?
Yes, the end of April.
What was that experience like, and who reached out to you to make that happen?
Actually, I have to give thanks to my son.
Who's also involved in show business.
Yeah. I Walking Dead. No.
Little show.
Yeah, just a little show, The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But he does my emails for me.
Yeah.
Like emailing people, posing as me. He'll email people.
Yeah.
He's always trying to help Dad out. Well, he had emailed them down there, and it had been months ago. And one day he called me up, and I didn't answer right away, and he said 911.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong with him or one
Yeah.
of the grandkids? And finally I called him back. He said, you're going to Orlando. You're going to Orlando. And I'm like, what for? We're going back to Universal Studios. I miss it. He's
Harry
like,
Potter World.
Yeah. He's like, no. He said, you're going to the Performance Center. They want to bring you down as a guest coach. I'm like, who? Why? Who? And anyway, that's how it came about. And they wanted me for a certain week, and I told them I couldn't do that. And I'm like, but after that, I'm free. And then they shot me another week, and I'm like, yes, I'll do it. And then brought me down. They flew me down and put me up, and went to the Performance Center every day and had 2 live performance show at the Performance Center where all they get look at, and they get in front of all the coaches and everything and all the boys and put on a show to get practice or whatever. And then Thursday and Friday were live NXT shows, and I was in charge of being an agent for a match on there.
Yeah.
Each one of those. And it was an awesome experience. I was treated great and treated like I was one of them, and all the guys were receptive of my critique and actually asked me questions and stuff and made me feel really special. I felt really good about it. And of course, Matt Bloom told me, he said, when you get home, shoot me an email and let me know how your week went. And I shot him one, and I said, hey, if spot ever opens up, I'd be glad to move down here.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. But I was standing on the side of the ring. We were watching something going on, and I was standing there next to Scotty Too Hottie.
Yeah,
Scott
Taylor.
Yeah. And he goes, I don't know about you, Chris. He said, but I'm glad I came up the way I did, and me and you did. He said, if I had to go through all this just to be a pro, I don't know if I'd do it or not. Because they're there from morning to night.
Yeah.
I mean, just nonstop. It's a factory to bred wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
They're constantly training. And I'm working out with these 2 guys from India, and they can't speak English. And then I'm just showing them the basics. Lock up, reverse this, reverse that. And they, okay, thank you so much. We go English class now.
Yeah.
And then I'm in this classroom, and we're watching everybody's matches, and they're stopping. They're like, okay, what could you have done here? And I'm like, God, I wish I had access to all this, and I was coming up, It's something else. It's another world.
Yeah, the way that Shane Helms had always told me, and it says it pretty publicly, he's glad that he came up the way he did. That way people now don't have to, and he does wish that he had the benefit of all that stuff. But was there anybody there that kind of stood out to you that you were like, man, like you just saw what they were doing, and you're like, yeah, they're probably going to be money?
Man, I would love to tell you. I can picture him in my head, but I don't know the guy's name. I'm sure he's been on NXT TV by now, but I think he was a Samoan guy.
Yeah.
Or he dark skinned, but he had long bleached blonde hair.
Oh, okay.
I watched him working. He did a workout match. Actually, Sheamus was there.
Kona Reeves.
Is that him?
Kona Reeves would be his name.
He did a workout match with Sheamus in the ring because I think Sheamus had been hurt.
Yeah.
He came there and did some cardio, but then he got in the ring with him, and they were doing some stuff, and I'm like, that guy's good.
Yeah.
Because he had personality, the look, and his timing in the ring. I'm like, that guy's going to be good. That's who stuck out to me.
Did you get in the soft ring and do any like springboard 450s?
Well, I helped with Robbie Brookside's class. He deals with all the beginners and all that. And he said, asked me if I'd been in that ring yet. I'm like, no. He said, come over here. And I got in there. I'm like, oh, man, if I had access to this when I was a kid, I ain't no telling what I'd be doing off the top rope now. Because, back then it's just, it's still a real ring, but all you had was the foam egg carton thing that you had wrapped up. Then you could practice elbow drops and stuff on. But you didn't have no soft stuff to, if you landed wrong, it wouldn't hurt you. Yeah. So back then, it was a gamble. But if I had access to that, I'd probably be doing a lot more stuff off top rope than I do now.
We mentioned your son. He's got his foot in the door in show business, and obviously a career in wrestling and pursuing show business in that manner could be in the future. Obviously, your daughter's a big wrestling fan. That's how we know each other. What are you going to say if, like, in a few years she's like, hey, Dad, I'm ready to take some bumps?
You know, it's weird. I always thought my son would want to get in there, but I don't know. He
looks like a star, too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a rock star.
Yeah.
You know, he lives it up, but I think this is me personally talking my opinion. You'd have to ask him, but I think he don't want to, even though I've had semi-success, whatever, I think he would feel if he climbed in the ring that he would be under a lot of pressure to perform as good as me or
possibly
way better.
Too. Like,
yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, kind of like the whole David Flair thing.
Exactly.
And I don't think he wanted to live through that. But I don't know. He just has the smarts. Like, he loves the music industry.
Yeah.
I used to play drums. I love the music industry, too. I would love to go back to playing drums one day.
Yeah.
But he wants to produce.
Yeah.
Be behind the scenes, behind the camera. And I think he has a real knack for that. Like, he's always throwing ideas at me for what I do. Hey, Dad, you should do this. Hey, Dad, you should wear that. You know, he's good at that instead of being a performer himself. I don't know. I just think that's the way he went. But as far as my daughter goes, oh, my gosh. I thought he and I were obsessed with the business. Ever since she laid eyes on Becky Lynch, she is like lives, sleeps, eats, and breathes it. And then we went to a live show at Diddle Arena in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
And she was hooked. Like, we've had to, like, if you don't straighten up, if you don't get it together, no more Becky Lynch.
Oh, wow.
No more wrestling. You ain't watching wrestling no more. It's like, if we can't, there was a point in time. She's okay now. But if there was a point in time we couldn't watch Monday Night Raw, I'm like, I record it. We'll watch it later on the week.
Sure. 3-hour show, too.
Mom and Dad have our shows on Monday night. We're recording it, though. But if we promised she could watch the pay-per-view or during the pay-per-view, because it's always on a Sunday, got to go to school on Monday, if she happened to miss Becky's Lynch match that night, if it was after she had to go to bed, she'd pout.
Of course,
like,
yeah.
Straighten it up or no more Becky Lynch. Like, she's obsessed. She's very athletic. She's very tall. And she says to this day that's what she wants to do. And if that's what she wants to do, I will back her up and support her. I think she'd be great at it.
Yeah, considering the leaps that women's wrestling has made in the mainstream in the last few years, does that make you more optimistic?
Yeah, it does. And her whole overall attitude, like, she says stuff to me and she's like, well, Dad, that day I main event WrestleMania.
That's awesome.
When I get that big house and when I get that money, she said, I know you always wanted to go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. She goes, Eiffel Tower, I'm going to take you. Or, and I always tell you, I go, when you get your big house, save Dad a room in the basement. And that's all. She talks like that's her destiny. Yeah. Right now, at 13 years old, when all the other 13-year-old girls are into boys and wanting to date and all that, and she's drawing on a piece of paper what her outfit's going to look like and what colors. Yeah. And she'll say, hey, Dad, what do you think of that? If I wore that to the ring.
Yeah.
That's what she's into. And I'm like, whew, that's some passion there. I'm like,
yeah, no kidding.
That blows me out of the water.
Well, clearly a talented family, and if they want to follow you on social media or people, as we wrap up, let them know where they can follow you.
Well, I have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I apologize.
We can put the handle right down here, right now, right here.
Well, I know Facebook is under Chris Michaels. Instagram, I think, is Chris Michaels 73.
Yeah.
And Twitter may be the same thing.
Yeah, I believe Twitter is the same thing. He's a good follow. Always, I always see you helping people out. I always see you giving good feedback and good notes as well. But Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, thank you so much.
This probably won't be the last time we talk on camera.
Hope not.
But guys, make sure you give him a follow. Until next time, We're out.